Hello friends, welcome back to 3rd grade online with Miss Naz Report. I hope you're having a fantastically sunny spring break day. I miss your faces today and I hope you're having fun. Today we're going to read chapters 4 and 5 of Matilda. If you remember, we have so far met some pretty interesting characters. We've met Matilda, the little genius 4 and 5-year-old who can read and come up with great pranks. We've met her brother who inherited his father's love of being a crook, and we've met Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood. Mr. Wormwood owns a car dealership and cheats as often and as shamelessly as he can, and Mrs. Wormwood, who likes to play bingo and watch television. Matilda has made the choice that anytime her parents are beastly or mean to her, she's going to play a prank. I wonder if we're going to find out about another prank today. The chapter we're going to read today is called The Ghost, and I'll let you take a look at the picture to get a little preview. I've got my hot beverage just like Matilda. I'm in my comfy chair and I'm ready to read. Let's go. There was comparative calm in the Wormwood household for about a week after the superglue episode. The experience had clearly chastened Mr. Wormwood, and he seemed temporarily to have lost his taste for boasting and bullying. Then suddenly, he struck again. Perhaps he had had a bad day at the garage and had not sold enough crummy secondhand cars. There are many things that make a man irritable, even when he arrives home from work in the evening, and a sensible wife will usually notice the storm signals and will leave him alone until he simmers down. When Mr. Wormwood arrived back from the garage that evening, his face was as dark as a thundercloud, and somebody was clearly for the high jump pretty soon. His wife recognized the signs immediately and made herself scarce. He then strode into the living room. Matilda happened to be curled up in an armchair in the corner, totally absorbed in a book. Mr. Wormwood switched on the television. The screen lit up. The program blared. Mr. Wormwood glared at Matilda. She hadn't moved. She had somehow trained herself by now to block her ears to the ghastly sound of the dreaded box. She kept right on reading, and for some reason, this infuriated her father. To be infuriated is to be in a super high red, very, very angry. Perhaps his anger was intensified because he saw her getting pleasure from something that was beyond his reach. "Don't you ever stop reading?" he snapped at her. "Oh, hello, Daddy," she said pleasantly. "Did you have a good day?" "What is this trash?" he said, snatching the book from her hands. And there you can see Mr. Wormwood holding Matilda's book, almost like it was going to bite him. "It isn't trash, Daddy. It's lovely. It's called The Red Pony. It's by John Steinbeck, an American writer." "Why don't you try it? You'll love it." "Filth," Mr. Wormwood said. "If it's by an American, it's certain to be filth. That's all they write about." "No, Daddy, it's beautiful. Honestly, it is." "It's about—" "I don't want to know what it's about," Mr. Wormwood barked. "I'm fed up with your reading anyway. Go and find yourself something useful to do." With frightening suddenness, he now began ripping the pages out of the book by handfuls and throwing them in the waste paper basket. Oh, that would make me so mad. Matilda froze in horror. The father kept going. There seemed little doubt that the man felt some kind of jealousy. "How dare she?" he seemed to be saying with each rip of a page. "How dare she enjoy reading books when he couldn't? How dare she?" "That's a library book," Matilda cried. "It doesn't belong to me. I have to return it to Mrs. Phelps." "Then you'll have to buy another one, won't you?" the father said, still tearing out pages. "You'll have to save your pocket money until there's enough in the kitty to buy a new one." In the kitty means in the bank. "For your precious Mrs. Phelps, won't you?" With that, he dropped the now empty covers of the book into the basket and marched out of the room, leaving the telly blaring. Most children in Matilda's place would have burst into a flood of tears. She didn't do this. She sat there very still and white and thoughtful. She seemed to know that neither crying nor sulking means pouting, she seemed to know that neither crying nor sulking ever got anyone anywhere. The only sensible thing to do when you are attacked is, as Napoleon once said, to counterattack. Matilda's wonderfully subtle mind was already at work, devising yet another suitable punishment for the poisonous parent. The plan that was now beginning to hatch in her mind depended, however, upon whether or not Fred's parrot was really as good as a talker as Fred made out. Fred was one of Matilda's friends. He was a small boy of 6 who lived just round the corner from her, and for days he had been going on about this great talking parrot his father had given him. So the following afternoon, as soon as Mrs. Wormwood had departed in her car for another session of bingo, Matilda set out for Fred's house to investigate. She knocked on his door and asked if he would be kind enough to show her the famous bird. Fred was delighted and led her up to his bedroom, where a truly magnificent blue and yellow parrot sat in the tall cage. "There it is," Fred said. "Its name is Chopper." "Make it talk," Matilda said. "You can't make it talk," Fred said. "You have to be patient. It'll talk when it feels like it." They hung around waiting. Suddenly, the parrot said, "Hello, hello, hello." It was exactly like, a human voice, Matilda said. "That's amazing. What else can it say?" "Rattle my bones," the parrot said, giving a wonderful imitation of a spooky voice. Oh, I didn't do that right. Let me try that again. "Rattle my bones," the parrot said, giving a wonderful imitation of a spooky voice. "Rattle my bones." "He's always saying that," Fred told her. "What else can he say?" Matilda asked. "That's about it," Fred said. "But it is pretty marvelous, don't you think? It's fabulous." Matilda said, "Will you lend him to me for one night?" "No," Fred said, "certainly not." "I'll give you all my next week's pocket money," Matilda said. That was different. Fred thought about it for a few seconds. "All right then," he said, "if you promise to return him tomorrow." Matilda staggered back to her own empty house, carrying the tall cage in both hands. There was a large fireplace in the dining room, and she now set about wedging the cage up the chimney and out of sight. This wasn't so easy, but she managed it in the end. So here Matilda has borrowed Fred's bird and wedged him up inside the fireplace. Let's see what's going to happen. "Hello, hello, hello," the bird called down to her. "Hello, hello." "Shut up, you nut," Matilda said, and she went out to wash the soot off her hands. That evening, while their mother and father, the brother, and Matilda were having supper as usual in the living room in front of the television, a voice came loud and clear from the dining room across the hall. "Hello, hello, hello," it said. Here's a picture of Matilda shoving that bird right up in the fireplace. "Harry," cried the mother, turning white, "there's someone in the house. I heard a voice." "So did I," the brother said, and Matilda jumped up and switched off the telly. "Shh," she said, "listen." They all stopped eating and sat there very tense, listening. "Hello, hello, hello," came the voice again. "There it is," cried the brother. "It's burglars," hissed the mother. "They're in the dining room." "I think they are," the father said, sitting tight. "Then go and catch them, Harry," hissed the mother. "Go out and collar them red-handed." The father didn't move. He seemed in no hurry to dash off and be a hero. His face turned gray. "Get on with it," hissed the mother. "They're probably after the silver." The husband wiped his lips nervously with his napkin. "Why don't we all go and look together?" he said. "Come on, then," the brother said. "Come on, Mum." "They're definitely in the dining room," Matilda whispered. "I'm sure they are." The mother grabbed a poker from the fireplace. The father took a golf club that was standing in the corner. The brother seized a table lamp, ripping the plug out of its socket. Matilda took the knife she had been eating with, and all four of them crept towards the dining room door, the father keeping well behind the others. "Hello, hello, hello," came the voice again. "Come on," Matilda cried, and she burst into the room, brandishing her knife. "Stick 'em up," she yelled. "We've caught you." The others followed, they waving their weapons. Then they stopped. They stared around the room. There was no one there. "There's no one here," the father said, greatly relieved. "I heard him, Harry," the mother shrieked, still quaking. "I distinctly heard his voice. So did you." "I'm certain I heard him," Matilda cried. "He's in here somewhere." She began searching behind the sofa and behind the curtains. And then came the voice again, soft and spooky this time. "Rattle my bones," it said. "Rattle my bones." They all jumped, including Matilda, who was a pretty good actress. They stared around the room. There was still no one there. "It's a ghost," Matilda said. "Heaven help us," cried the mother, clutching her husband round the neck. "I know it's a ghost," Matilda said. "I've heard it here before. This room is haunted. I thought you knew that." "Save us," the mother screamed, almost throttling her husband. "I'm getting out of here," the father said, grayer than ever now. They all fled, slamming the door behind them. The next afternoon, Matilda managed to get a rather sooty and grumpy parrot down from the chimney and out of the house without being seen. She carried it through the back door and ran with it all the way to Fred's house. "Did it behave itself?" Fred asked her. "We had a lovely time with it," Matilda said. "My parents adored it." Another evil trick from Matilda. Very funny. Next chapter is called Arithmetic. Matilda longed for her parents to be good and loving and understanding and honorable and intelligent. The fact that they were none of these things was something she had to put up with. It was not easy to do so, but the new game she had invented of punishing one or both of them each time they were beastly to her made her life more or less bearable. Being very small and very young, the only power Matilda had over anyone in her family was brain power. For sheer cleverness, she could run rings around them all. But the fact remained that any 5-year-old girl in any family, was always obliged to do as she was told, however asinine the orders might be. Thus, she was always forced to eat her evening meals out of a TV dinner trays in front of the dreaded box. She always had to stay alone on weekday afternoons, and whenever she was told to shut up, she had to shut up. Her safety valve, the thing that prevented her from going round the bend, that means a little crazy, was the fun of devising and dishing out these splendid punishments. And the lovely thing was that they seemed to work, at any rate, for short periods. The father, in particular, became less cocky and unbearable for several days after receiving a dose of Matilda's magic medicine. The parrot in the chimney affair quite definitely cooled both parents down a lot. And for over a week, they were comparatively civil, that means nice. They were comparatively civil to their small daughter. But alas, this couldn't last. The next flare-up came one evening in the sitting room. Mr. Wormwood had just returned from work. Matilda Wormwood and her brother were sitting quietly on the sofa, waiting for their mother to bring in the TV dinners on a tray. The television had not yet been switched on. In came Mr. Wormwood in a loud check suit and a yellow tie. The appalling broad orange and green check of the jacket and trousers almost blinded the onlooker. He looked like a low-grade bookmaker dressed up for his daughter's wedding, and he was clearly very pleased with himself this evening. A bookmaker is somebody who handles gambling. He sat down in an armchair and rubbed his hands together and addressed his son in a loud voice. "Well, my boy," he said, "your father's had a most successful day. He is a lot richer tonight than he was this morning. He has sold no less than 5 cars, each one at a tidy profit. Sawdust in the gearboxes, the electric drill on the speedometer cables, a splash of paint here and there, and a few other clever little tricks that the idiots were all falling over themselves to buy." He fished a bit of paper from his pocket and studied it. "Listen, boy," he said, addressing the son and ignoring Matilda. "Seeing as you'll be going into the business with me one day, you've got to know how to add up profits you make at the end of each day. Go and get yourself a pad and a pencil, and let's see how clever you are." The son obediently left the room and returned with the writing materials. "Write down these figures," the father said, reading from his bit of paper. "Car number 1 was bought by me for 278 pounds. Pounds are like dollars, but it's the money that they spend in England. And sold for 1,425. Got that?" The 10-year-old boy wrote the 2 separate amounts down, slowly and carefully. "Car number 2, the father went on, "cost me 118 pounds and sold for 760. Got it?" "Yes, Dad," the son said. "I've got that." "Car number 3 cost 111 pounds and sold for 999 pounds and 50 pence. "Say that again," the son said. "How much did it sell for?" 999 pounds and 50 pence, the father said. "And that, by the way, is another of my nifty little tricks to diddle the customers. Never ask for a big round figure. Always go just below it. Never say 1,000 pounds. Always say 999.50. It sounds much less, but it isn't. Clever, isn't it?" "Very," the son said. "You're brilliant, Dad." Car number 4 cost 86 pounds, a real wreck that was, and sold for 699 pounds 50. "Not too fast," the son said, writing the numbers down. "Right, I've got it. Car number 5 cost 637 pounds and sold for 1,649.50. You got all those figures written down, son?" "Yes, Daddy," the boy said, crouching over his pad and carefully writing. "Very well," the father said. And here is a picture of the father. "Very well," the father said. "Now work out the profit I made out of each of those 5 cars and add up the total. Then you'll be able to tell me how much money your rather brilliant father made altogether today." "That's a lot of sums," the boy said. "Of course it's a lot of sums," the father answered. "But when you're in big business like I am, you've got to be hot stuff at arithmetic, math. I've practically got a computer inside my head. It took me less than 10 minutes to work out the whole thing." "You mean you did it in your head, Dad?" the son asked, goggling. "Well, not exactly," the father said. "Nobody could do that. But it didn't take me long. When you're finished, tell me what you think my profit was for the day. I've got the final total written down here, and I'll tell you if you're right." Matilda said quietly, "Dad, you made exactly 4,303 pounds and 50 pence altogether." "Don't butt in," the father said. "Your brother and I are busy with high finance." "But, Dad..." Hush, the father said. Stop guessing and trying to be clever. Look at your answer, Dad, Matilda said gently. If you've done it right, it ought to be 4,303 pounds and 50 pence. Is that what you've got, Dad? The father glanced down at the paper in his hand. He seemed to stiffen. He became very quiet. There was a silence. Then he said, Say that again? 4,303 pounds 50, Matilda said. There was another silence. The father's face was beginning to go dark red. I'm sure it's right, Matilda said. You little cheat, the father suddenly shouted, pointing at her with his finger. You looked at my bit of paper. You read it off what I'd written down there. And there's Dad going all red. Daddy, I'm on the other side of the room, Matilda said. How could I possibly see it? Don't give me that rubbish, the father shouted. Rubbish is garbage. Of course you looked. You must have looked. No one in the world could give the right answer like that, especially a girl. You're a little cheat, madam. That's what you are, a cheat and a liar. At that point, the mother came in carrying a large tray on which there were 4 suppers. This time it was fish and chips, which Mrs. Wormwood had picked up in the fish and chip shop on her way home from bingo. It seemed that bingo afternoons left her so exhausted, both physically and emotionally, that she never had enough energy left to cook an evening meal. So, if it wasn't TV dinners, it had to be fish and chips. What are you looking so red in the face about, Harry? She said as she put the tray down on the coffee table. Your daughter's a cheat and a liar, the father said, taking his plate of fish and placing it on his knees. Turn the telly on and let's not have any more talk. So we've learned that not only is Matilda super good at reading and could read by the age of 4, teaching herself, she's really good at math and mental math as well. All right, third graders, enjoy your beautiful second day of spring break. I will see you back here tomorrow at the same time for the next 2 chapters of Matilda. All right, talk soon.